Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Until 6, where we talk about all things related to Five Nights at Freddy's. Today we're going to be talking about cut content from the game. Let's begin. Starting with the first game, there used to be a live system implemented in the game, and we have the graphics for the game as all the cut content is easily available in the files. There was a stickman graphic which would appear above the amount of lives you had left. This live system lasted up until at least the July 13th, as that was the day a video known as Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay was uploaded by Scott Kaufman onto his channel, and it showed the live system still in action at 1. We don't know how many lives are allowed, probably somewhere around, probably 3 or so, that's the typical amount. And we can guess that once he ran out, it would restart the game. This was likely scrapped as it would make the game near impossible on later nights. The original camera layout for the game was very different. Instead of square boxes, it was cones with circles attached to it. More accurately, a circle with a cone attached to it, with the cone demonstrating the visibility area for that camera. The placements for the cameras were also a little bit different. The camera in the backstage was directed in the back corner, so it would have been behind the door instead of in front of it. Unlike in the actual game where it's in the front corner, so you can see the doorway. But in this alternate placement, you would not be able to see the doorway, what's in the doorway, as it would have been behind the door. Alongside that, the camera, some of the other camera stations are a little bit different. Now, another one is the full stage stare. In the trailer for the game, there's a scene where all the animatronics turn their head and stare directly at you. Now, this image was actually in the game files, so that means this was intended to happen in the game. All the animatronics turn their head and stare at you. But this never actually happened in the game for one reason or another. But many people claim that they actually saw this happen in the game, but it's simply not possible. The code doesn't run that image, but it is there in the files, them all staring at you. And it wasn't a trailer, so most likely there's some kind of error. It didn't show up, or maybe it was scrapped. But it's likely just some kind of error that kept it from popping up in the game where they'll just turn and stare at you. And alongside that, early on in the game development, instead of Porter was Foxy, there were ideas for either a beaver or a wolf. The beaver idea was scrapped because it was too similar to his previous game, Chipper and Son Lumber Co., which ironically enough inspired the game. He probably thought it was a little bit too close on the nose to be for the antagonist, so then he went to a fox, to a wolf, he scrapped that, and then became a fox, Foxy, Pirate Fox. Now on to the second game. For the mask, there was initially meant to be a toxicity meter, and the longer you wore the mask, the higher the toxicity meter would go up, meant to keep you from wearing it for too long. But of course, this is probably scrapped because it's probably redundant, really. As nights go on, you will be able to just sit there and wear the mask all the time. But there's a whole lot of things to do in the game as nights go on. You gotta constantly flash the hallways, check out the music box, and it gets pretty hectic in those later nights. It punches you an unnecessary mechanic. Alongside that, there was also an image in the files that depicted the puppet in the office. Now, in this image, the puppet was on strings. It didn't have one of those puppet controller devices that you use to switch, turn around to make the puppet move their arms up and down and stuff. You didn't have one of those. So it seemed that initially, early on, the puppet was to actually appear in the office. Most likely once the puppet's music box ran out. In game, when the music box runs out, what will happen is that they will just jump scare you. They don't appear in the office. They just kind of sort of jump scare you. Alongside that, there was a strange graphic that appeared in the files called Mike. It was a half skull, not the whole head, with only half of the skull was shown, and had black tears running down its side. The live system also reappeared in the game's files, but this was likely because how close together the games were developed, some of the files just ended up getting carried over there. And from what it seems early on from promotional materials, Mang will have a hook. Go look at old promotional material early on in development. They seem to have initially had a hook before having that scrapped. On to the third game. There was a texture inside of the third game's files for a seal vent feature. In the game, when you want to seal a vent, if you double-click the screen, but early on, you would have just clicked a button. I don't know why this was scrapped. It makes a lot more sense to just click a button to seal the vent than having to double-click it. When I used to play the game back then, when I was younger, it took me forever to figure that out, as I didn't know they had to double-click the screen. So it would have been much easier if you just had a button. It could, like you had a button. And of course, there was supposed to be a button. It literally said seal vent. I don't know why I got rid of the seal vent button, but for one reason or another, he got rid of it. Now, there was also a scrap graphic for a 7th night graphic, text and stuff. Now, of course, this meant that probably early on in the game's development, there was going to be 7 nights for the game, probably a custom night. But probably fairly early on, just had to scrap that idea and instead go with just ending at 6 nights. But I think it would have been really nice to get a full 7 nights, All the other games by this point had 7 nights, so why not end it off with another 7 nights, Each game ended after the 7th night, usually getting fired. Of course, fired. The place gets set on fire. I really think it should have been a 7th night. So I don't know why I scrapped the 7th night, but at least we know there's plans for it because there was a graphic to indicate a 7th night. Now on to the 4th game. Now in the 4th game, there was a scrap graphic that said chapter in pixelated white font. This is meant to be for after each post-night minigame, intended to separate each minigame into chapters for some reason. There was also a fully animated star animation which changed colors as it spun around and flashed. It was a flashing, sort of bright, colorful star. This was likely meant for the title screen when you beat each part of the game. You beat the first 5 nights, then you beat the 6th night, then you beat Nightmare and stuff, and all those other kind of things. But that was scrapped. It got rid of something else. They got rid of that. Now another thing was also the open box. There was meant to be an open box. There was an open box graphic in the game, which is the box, but now open. In the game, the box is left empty. The box aren't taken off, but the open box graphic was in the game. There was an image made for it. We don't know what's inside of it, but there were intentions for it to be opened up. But most likely after beating the 2020 mode, likely. As of course there's a graphic for opened up, but at some point in development, probably pretty late on, because you at the very end of the game, plans for it to be revealed what was inside of it, but I guess those never came to fruition. There's a lot of things that come after this, but I don't have time to cover 5 and all the other games, so I think I'll see y'all around sometime later. So, yeah. Bye, have a nice time.